So, I have a confession to make. I believe women belong in the kitchen, cleaning, taking care of the kids, and men in the workforce. Well, unconsciously I do. A couple of years ago, I developed a workshop on unconscious bias. And I wanted to link that to see how people think, both men and women, think about women in career spaces. I wanted to demonstrate how unconscious biases really do affect the way we see one another at work. As part of this workshop, I asked 600 participants to take an assessment. It's called the Implicit Association Test. This tool is a Harvard University tool developed by many researchers. And it measures unconscious bias towards race, ethnicity, gender, even weight. There's a whole menu of items. Now, participants in this particular case were asked to take the assessment to see, once again, the link between gender and career and family. I had taken the self-assessment myself a few years prior. Now, I wasn't surprised by the results of the 600 participants. The majority of them had biases. Now, when I reflected back, I was shocked when I saw my results, because I also had a bias. Like I said before, I unconsciously see women as being housewives and men being out building a career. Now, given my professional background, like I said before, I was floored. I was embarrassed by the results. But before I tell you about my background, let's define unconscious bias. Now, these are biases that occur automatically, unintentionally, but they do have an incredibly large effect on our judgment, on the way we make decisions, and the way we behave. Now, we all have biases. It's absolutely normal. It's normal to have preferences for people that are similar to us. We tend to gravitate to situations where we feel secure, safe, and we also gravitate to people that are like us, that speak like us, that look like us. This is known as an affinity bias, one of the many types of biases that exist. Now, most of the biases or associations are conscious, and they may lead to positive or negative perspectives. However, unconscious biases can be developed and reinforced through media, religion, and even family expectations. Like this iceberg exhibits, unconscious biases tend to be unseen, deeply rooted beliefs, just lurking under the surface. And they can lead us to dangerous territories, like racism, ageism, sexism, and making generalizations about people. As I reflected on my own results, I realized that my idea of gender and responsibilities came from both religion and my family expectations. I grew up in a conservative and religious family in Mexico. My brothers were raised very different than I was. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. She took care of us. She did the cleaning and the cooking, while my father worked long hours. He was the sole financial provider for our family, a huge responsibility. Like I said before, I grew up with brothers, with older brothers, and I saw the differences in the way they were raised. They were allowed to stay out late. They didn't have curfews. They could go out to parties. They were given big responsibilities, even at a younger age. Bottom line, they had a lot of freedom. Now, I was a bit of a wild bird as a child. I liked the freedom my brothers had, so I took the persona of macho machete. I walked around in jeans and cowboy boots. That, for some reason, just made me feel powerful. I wasn't afraid of anything. I felt fearless with those cowboy boots on. Now, my parents allowed me to play that role when I was a child. But when I became a teenager, that changed. The expectations of acting like a lady were messaged loud and clear. I couldn't wear short skirts. I could speak only when spoken to. I had to learn how to make a bed, how to set a table, how to mind my manners. I learned to play the part. I rarely broke rules, and my son makes fun of that because I tell him stories about that. I became a people pleaser, always saying yes and avoiding conflicts. But deep down, I felt like I was suffocating. As a result, I moved 3,500 miles away to go to college, far away from my family, and I never looked back. It is perhaps no wonder that I chose the career I'm in today. I am a diversity and inclusion expert. I have been dedicated the last 20 years of my career supporting the financial and career development and empowerment of women. I work with executives, both men and women, in financial institutions, NGOs, and regulatory bodies globally. Now, this work has given me a unique perspective that cuts across both geographical regions and cultures. I know of the barriers that exist for women who choose a career and still have to balance work and personal life. Expectations for women to successfully run a household, take care of children, the cooking, while keeping a full-time job is really a heavy burden and in some cases unrealistic, especially when they don't have the support at home. I also understand the unfair and unbalanced responsibilities that men feel about being the main breadwinner. They carry a lot of weight on those shoulders. Although I might seem like a dinosaur to some of you, my son included, I'm Gen X and not completely out of touch. So I ask you, the younger audience, what would you say if I told you that these traditional gender roles are still alive and well today? Well, at least in the household they are. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. I have a few questions for you. And let's start with the moms. Raise your hand if you work part or full-time. Wait, not for everyone else. Raise your hand if you do most of the cooking. Look around. Raise your hand if you do most of the cleaning. Drives the kids to parties. Takes children to doctor appointments. Plans vacations. Okay, so you see a trend here. We know it is a privilege to have a household where men are the sole breadwinners today, given that in most households nowadays you require 2 incomes. That's a complete departure from the way I grew up. And although some of us would like to run around in our Lululemons, drinking matcha in our giant Stanley cups on our way to paddle, me included, the notion is unrealistic for most. The truth is that regardless of all the gender and inclusion policies, the roles have changed very little since the 1940s, certainly when it comes to domestic duties. As a society, we've come a long way, but there's still a lot more to be done. Traditional gender roles have transformed over time, and they don't reflect the full range of abilities or identities. We have developed regulations and policies to help women in the workplace. And although most women are now largely employed or working, whether it's formally or informally, we still see that there is an imbalance when it comes to the household chores and the domestic responsibilities. So what can we do as parents? I'm a mother of a young boy. Therefore, I take this responsibility seriously. I want to make sure that I'm raising a smart, well-rounded individual. And by the way, this is easier said than done. I still find myself catering to my husband and my boy. I cook most of the meals. I do the cleaning. I am constantly exhausted trying to balance the household and trying to start a new business. I am consciously aware of the unconscious messages I am sending my son. And for that, I'm in a constant internal struggle. Now, regardless of my own shortcomings, I do believe that breaking stereotypes start at home. Therefore, in order to break the cycle, we need to encourage equal participation in household chores. My son helps around the house. He knows how to cook. That's him, and he's mortified. He makes breakfast on the weekends. He knows how to do laundry, and is in charge of recycling and cleaning windows. We promoted and still promote diversity in toys, activities, and career choices for both genders. We also try to be role models. My son knows that I've been in the workforce. That's all he's known since he was born. Therefore, I encourage you to defy those traditional norms in your own household, to break down those stereotypes. As a parent, we must model the behavior we want our kids to replicate. This is for the benefit of both our daughters and our sons. I challenge you to be an active role model, to set examples, even if it goes against our nature. So moms, I challenge you to start to delegate. You don't have to do it all. Dads, I challenge you to step in, even after a long day of work. Give your wife a hand. And kids, I challenge you to also help with errands. But be proactive. Don't wait for your moms to nag. And I also want to encourage you, the kids here today, to question the established rules. If they feel unfair or unbalanced, be your own advocate. Remember that we have the power to shape the future by breaking down the biases that hold us back. And stay true to yourself, cowboy boots and all. Thank you.